The gaming laptop industry has tons of powerful laptops, but there is something different from Asus, and it has me kind of excited. We're talking about the Asus ROG Flow X13 gaming laptop and the ROG XG Mobile RTX 3080 GPU. First, let's just look at the X13 laptop itself. We see that it's made of aluminum and plastic, and it weighs less than 3 pounds, coming in at 2.87 pounds, which makes it portable and very appealing as a travel gaming capable laptop. The lighter the better, of course, in our opinion, especially if you consider where we came from when it used to be gaming laptops. I mean, anything back then that didn't weigh like 10 pounds and you were doing great. Anyway, there are multiple variants of this laptop. We have the 120Hz FHD version, which we had, and there also is a 4K UHD 60Hz display version. For the screen, we have a 13.4-inch FHD 120Hz touchscreen. Yes, I said touchscreen. That is a glossy IPS display in the model that we actually tested. Okay, so my 2 cents here. If you are considering getting this laptop, go with the 120Hz for gaming over the 4K 60Hz, because the 4K 60Hz is more creator focused, and playing games at a non-native resolution, even with an eGPU, isn't ideal. See, true 4K gaming is kind of a bit of a farce, and it's even more so for laptops. But if you're a content creator, then 4K makes a lot of sense, and it's good to have that option. We have a 3.5mm combo audio jack, we have an HDMI 2.0, we have one USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port, and two USB 3.2 Type 2 Gen Type C ports that also have DisplayPort with power delivery. The XG Mobile eGPU, or the external GPU, also has additional ports if you were to pick one of these up to add to this lovely device. It's got 4 USB 3.2 Type A ports, one HDMI 2.0, one DisplayPort 1.4, one Ethernet. Now, the reason behind it having its own ports are by having this, it avoids common bottlenecks and it adds an added dedicated bandwidth for the integrated I/O hub. So how does the XG Mobile actually work, Robey? I mean, is it like any other eGPU, or is this one special, like getting a GPU in 2020 was special? Well, first, it actually is special. This laptop actually has a dedicated port specifically for the XG Mobile, which is why we talk about this thing as a pair. And it's a direct PCIe 3.0 by 8 connection to the CPU that has a dedicated 63 gigabytes per second of bandwidth just to the graphics processor. That's about 57% more than Thunderbolt. It also has a separate USB 3.2 Gen 2 as part of that connection that adds 10 gigabits per second for that I/O port we were speaking about earlier. It's 75% smaller than most eGPUs on the market. So one of the whole things that makes this thing unique is that it has what's called a mux switch, which allows you to manually enable and disable the integrated 3050 Ti or switch to the 3080 Ti, actually physically alters the connection between the GPU and the screen, letting you either get frames routed directly from the discrete GPU to the display or the integrated GPU to the display. It's actually really dang cool, and one of the reasons we're seeing the performance we are, which we'll show you a little bit about that later. Now, continuing with the specs of the X13 Flow that we tested, let's start with the CPU. Ours came equipped with an all-new AMD Ryzen 9 6900HS. For RAM, we have 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5, 1 terabyte of NVMe storage, and for the GPU, we have the highest you can get in the Flow X13, that was the RTX 3050 Ti. That's because it's all about pushing that new XG Mobile. It's either an RTX 3080 with a PCIe 3.0 by 8 dedicated GPU interface. There's also a newer model now available, which we haven't actually had the pleasure of testing, and that's a Radeon RX 6850M XT with what looks to be the exact same connectivity if you want to go Team Red versus whatever color red and green makes, besides Christmas. I actually don't think it's a very pretty color now that I think about it. Let's take a look at some of the numbers using both the internal 3050 Ti and using the XG Mobile RTX 3080. Let's begin with the CPU. Running the AMD Ryzen 9 6900HS and putting it through the ringer, we saw the CPU temp max out at about 69 degrees Celsius with the internal 3050 Ti, and it got to 85 when we were using the XG Mobile. Now, when the laptop was just at idle, we saw the CPU at 49 degrees and 46 for both internal and external CPU. Now for the GPU, the internal RTX 3050 Ti under load hit a max of 65, and we actually got the same number for the XG Mobile RTX 3080. Now, a couple notes on cooling both the XG Mobile and the X13 Flow is that they have vapor chamber cooling similar to what we've seen on laptops like the Asus Razer Blade, and as an added bonus, Asus actually used liquid metal on the CPU, which is why we're seeing better performance benchmarks along with cooler temperatures on both the CPU and GPU when under load. Now, we're not going to go through the entire benchmarks of all the games we tested, as I played quite a few with traveling and everything else, but let's go over a few of them on both the internal and the XG Mobile. Okay, let's start off with Cyberpunk 2077. Our settings were at 1900 by 1200, RTX was set to Ultra, and DLSS set to Ultra Performant. And we ran 3 runs to get our average, which we used the built-in benchmark. For our internal RTX 3050 Ti, we saw an average of 40.43 frames per second, and on the XG Mobile, we saw an average of 69.20. Sticking with a couple more single-player games for Shadow of the Tomb Raider, using the internal 3050 Ti, we averaged 69 frames per second, which is really good here, where the game was set on the highest preset and DLSS again set to Ultra Performant. On the XG Mobile, we saw frames per second jump to 119. Now, there's no secret there that the RTX 3080 is a lot more powerful than the 3050 Ti, but 50 frames per second in terms of a jump is actually incredible. Also, comparing this to the Razer Blade 15, which is a 12900H and a 3080 Ti Mobile, we only saw 90 frames per second on the Razer. We saw much higher on the XG Mobile, which is definitely a boost. Now, rounding out the single-player games is a truly underrated racing game, Dirt 5. The internal GPU was 38.9 with ultra graphic settings and 91.8 with the same settings on the XG Mobile. Oh, well, what about the Razer then, Robey? Well, how did that compare? Well, with our 3080 Ti, we only saw 40.7. So that APU plus GPU combo is actually a bit of a beast. Again, a 50 frame per second jump in performance between the two. Now, for some multiplayer games we tested, Apex Legends, Valorant, and Fortnite, and again, we only tested those actually on the XG Mobile RTX 3080. If you want to go see how something might perform on a 3050 Ti or a 3050, check out our Acer Nitro, because those are very, very similar specs. All of these games are set to the lowest visual settings. Again, it's all about inking the most frames per second we could. For Apex Legends, on the 3 runs we ran, again, these are averages, we got 127.4 frames per second. For Valorant, we saw 218.1 frames per second. And finally, for Fortnite, we saw 171 frames per second. Now, no need to even sweat here if you want to play on higher settings. As you can see, there's plenty of wiggle room to get above 60 frames per second and even 144 if you really wanted to. Okay, so that's it for kind of the basic specs. Let's just cover what's kind of special here. The AMD 6900HS CPU included with the X13 Flow is actually an APU, meaning it has an integrated Radeon GPU, which is a bonus, and it actually helps bolster the frames along with either an NVIDIA GPU or like an AMD GPU. Traveling with this laptop, I thought it was going to be a pain, but it turned out way better than I expected. Now, when I was ready to game on my laptop in my hotel room and it was just me, and then I wanted to basically have the XG Mobile for playing games on max settings, was absolutely awesome. But disconnecting and then heading out to the studio for recording, which meant I could carry the laptop around with no issue. I didn't have anything dangling. And the setup like YouTube or look at chat or like basically not having it weigh a bajillion pounds or use it as a mace was actually pretty dang awesome. And it felt really good. There are a couple of drawbacks worth mentioning. Number one is the screen. It is small. And knowing I had that kind of power, it would be nice, or I'd say in some ways even better, if you could see this in like a 15-inch or even 17-inch model that was ultra light like the X13, but you could use the XG Mobile and connect it and have like a bigger gaming experience. The laptop is not quiet when it gets going, and I'm talking about cooling. Both standalone and the XG Mobile, it's not gonna be like blowing out your ears loud, but you know, it's definitely noticeable. So also, while we're on the subject of cooling, the XG Mobile is a bit of a heat gun, and you need to be intentional about where you point the vents. Now, some other highlights on the system were I was a big fan of the keyboard. It's 15 inches and it stretches from edge to edge, and the keycaps are slightly curved, almost like a cradle for your fingertips. It was nice for both hours of typing and gaming, and the resistance was just enough. And not to mention it wasn't overtly loud, so like when you're typing, unlike some other gaming laptops, which isn't gonna like drive your neighbors nuts if you're in a library or in a shared workspace. It's actually pretty quiet and it feels good. But again, keyboards are such a personal thing, so if you get a chance to try it beforehand, it's always worth doing so. Now, you might want to know about the battery life, and the answer is it's actually kind of complicated. One thing worth noting is that you cannot use the XG Mobile not plugged in, and so for battery life of just the laptop, we were having issues with our tools and it got complicated in terms of what it was. But we were able to test the 100-watt USB-C adapter, which is not massive, and we appreciate that. But it does in fact charge the laptop from 0 to 50% in about 30 minutes. Okay, Robey, this all sounds pretty good, but how much does it cost? I think you've kind of put that off far enough. Well, I probably got you scared a bit, but the laptop itself is actually only $1,299. And then if you want to add the XG Mobile, then you need to double that cost, taking it to what, just over $2,600. To be clear, there are actually less expensive 3080 laptops out there for sure, but when you add in liquid metal on the CPU and the additional power output that the XG Mobile is actually allowed to use for graphics processing power, and you get that I/O, it's actually a bargain, because the performance, when you compare it to say like the Razer Blade 15, which is a high-end Intel and a mobile 3080 Ti, we're seeing almost 21% in favor of the Flow. Understanding obviously there's some differences in terms of resolution and stuff, but it's still pretty crazy. So wrapping it up, we have a very unique product in the X13 Flow and the XG Mobile that gives a laptop some power and portable flexibility. With some of the best practices for implementing both cooling, performance, and actual usability, the X13 Flow paired with the XG Mobile is quite a duo. But you have some decisions to make. There's still something just so easy about just grabbing a laptop and being on the go. But you know, when you think about the X13 Flow, and then you like add the XG Mobile, and then you're adding like a second power cable, and then you have your power brick too, it's like it's adding a level of complexity that not everyone's gonna be into. Sure, I mean, you know what, honestly, I thought it was gonna be worse than it actually was, and sure, I got into it, but you know, I still had to think about how I packed it and all sorts of stuff. There is some non-simplistic nature to carrying a device like this. But regardless of where you sit on the above, it is worth saying that Asus has built something very impressive. So much so that personally, I am literally considering dropping the money to purchase one for myself, as I had to actually send the laptop back, and it made me a little bit sad. But sometimes it's not about what I think, it's about what you think. So tell us your thoughts. You know what, maybe you can win a little cash in the process. First and foremost, you need a little quality comment down below, along with liking and subscribing to the channel. Now, when I say quality comment, it doesn't need to be positive, it just needs to be something you liked or didn't like about the video, or about what surprised you about the laptop, or maybe even something I said. Just not, I deserve to win, can I have a free laptop, or something else weird or lame. You also need to ensure we have a way to reach you via your YouTube profile, like your email. So put your email in your YouTube profile, because we will be giving away $25 to one lucky comment down below that is worldwide, as long as you can accept PayPal or Venmo. Now, if you don't have an email in your YouTube profile, we can't tell you you've won, and therefore you can't win. Anyway, guys, what did you guys think of the Asus ROG Flow X13 after this review? Were you surprised by the temps and the benchmarks? What about the price? What do you think about the XG Mobile add-on? Are you a XG Mobile fan, or do you just want all of it in one single gaming laptop? We'd love to know all that and more down in the comments below. Now, while you're down there, make sure you slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so you get a notification each and every time we post a new video right here on Robeytech. Did you know we have a live stream channel for special builds and events? We build custom PCs and test pre-builds live. So check out Robeytech Live down in the description below so you can like and subscribe to know when we go live, so you don't miss out when we do awesome builds like we do all the time. Do you have questions about this laptop or any other tech-related questions? Then check out our amazing Discord server over at discord.gg/Robeytech, filled with other tech and PC enthusiasts that love to share their thoughts and ideas on these very subjects. Are you looking for cheap tech? Then check out @Robeytech.com or @RobeytechDeals on Twitter. We have our guy Tom scouring the internet for the best deals on all things tech, from PC components to TVs. And finally, you can also follow me and my entire team on all the other socials @Robeytech, absolutely everywhere. Anyway, guys, we hope you enjoyed this video. We'd love to hear how we can always improve, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.